All right, I want to talk briefly about how you get help in R and RStudio. The most intimidating thing I think about R is just the sheer number of functions with which you can do any one thing. There's always multiple ways of solving any given problem. Some of them are efficient, more efficient than others, some are less. But in general, you've really got to struggle with how you're doing things. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to fire up R again by double-clicking the R project file in my project directory. And then I want to just briefly demonstrate the art, or the art, I guess, of trying to figure out how you're going to get some help for a particular thing in R. And so what I want to do is I want to take two objects and I want to stick them together. And so I've got a range of ways that I can get help. So the first thing I can do is I can always do question mark and then the name of a function, if I happen to know the name of the function. So I'll demonstrate that in a minute, but the two question marks does what is called a fuzzy search over the help environment. And we'll see how well this works. Not as well as I'd hoped. In fact, it seems to be stuck. Oh, there we go. Okay, so search results, no results found. Okay, so that didn't work very well. In fact, I've almost never found the double question mark thing to be terribly helpful. But if we know the name of the function, and I know there's a function C, which is quite important. I think we've seen it already in some of the examples. C for concatenate or stick things together. Let's try it, but I can't, let's say I can't remember the name of the function, but I know that that's what it does. There we go. Oh, okay, so now here is a whole bunch of different options where the word concatenate appears somewhere in the description. And let's see, in general these come in sort of two flavors. There's a different package, then two colons, and then the function, or in that case an operator. And I can look all the way down here and oh, wait a second, C, that looks familiar, but it's in a time date package. How about base? Base is always a good package to go with if you're looking for something really basic, because that's the one that's always loaded. So let's have a look at the base help. All the help files have this same structure. There's usually a sort of English language description at the front. Then there's a section called usage, which basically says here's the code that you do to use this function. And this is the first place where you'll see all the arguments listed that that function can work with. Then there's a list of the arguments giving a little bit more description about each of the things that they are. Oh, the other thing you see here is actually these indicate what the default values for the the arguments are. So then there's a bunch of descriptions of the arguments. Then there's details, which sort of gives you a lot more description about how the function works. Finally, value says what is the result that comes back. So if you were to use this function and assign the results to an object, what would you get? And the answer is, in this case, you wouldn't get anything. You'd have an empty object. Sometimes there's some caveats for how things work, and so that's what goes on here. Under note, references, that's papers or books that describe things. And then down here at the bottom are probably the most useful bit, I find, for learning how things work, are the examples. And really the best way to learn these things is to literally copy and paste them into R and see what they do, right? So what has iter given us? Okay, just a number, 11. Stats, : R plot. So this R, that's usually for our distribution function, indicates random. That's the kind of distribution. Then these arguments say how many random numbers, 1, and what the average value of that is. So iter, now we're going to do the cat. So what is cat doing here? It's got a string iteration, then it's doing some adding of the iteration, and then it's got this /n in a string. That's just a new line character. So what it does is it literally concatenated these things together and printed out the result. Okay, so that's what cat does. The other place that's useful for figuring things out, you're like, oh, that's not quite what I wanted. I wanted to be able to get the result back in an object. So we can look at a few of these other things here. Paste, what does paste do? Well, paste actually would do what we want. If I was to do this thing here and say, give me x, I would say x and it would be null. But if I do exactly the same thing, but I use, instead of x, I use paste, you notice it didn't, in first instance, it didn't actually print anything out, but instead it assigned it to this string. So let's see if there's anything else that paste might give us. So C also gives us another whole bunch of different ways in which we can stick things together into a string to print out. So that's sort of the help, and you can get those sorts of help messages by doing question mark. Let's say we want to look at what sprintf does. That's going to pull up the help for sprintf. I can also do help sprintf. Okay, there's question mark and help are the same. Question mark is easy because it's fast. And let's see, then there was also that time date thing, right? So let's see what happens if I look for that. Time, no. Okay, so it's telling me it doesn't know anything about that. Oh, here we go. This is the help I was looking for. Time date package. So if I do time date package, oops, that didn't give me what I wanted. Let's try this. Help time date. Okay, that brings up the same thing, time date package. So sometimes there's a bit of help associated with the package as well. This is in general not as common, or not as consistent, I would say. So some packages have done a good job of sort of giving an overview of what all the functions do, like this one, but sort of more difficult. Let's go back to the help or home and just do time date. No, it really doesn't. Okay, time date package. Nope, that still didn't work. So that's actually somehow giving me that thing there. What about, let's try the question marks. No, just help is the only way to work with that. But in the other way you can get access to the help, if you say you're trying to remember the name of the package, but you can't quite get it, so the double question marks will get you there or get you close. The other way to do it, and I do this a lot, is click the home button here, which takes you to a big list of different ways you can get help. Go into this, and now what I have is an alphabetical list of all the packages. And I know I'm interested in something to do with time, so let's look there. Oh, here we go. Time date, right? So that's going to take me to an alphabetical list of all the functions that are in the time date package. So there's lots of ways to sort of explore the help in R. If you really have absolutely no idea where to go or what to do, one of the strategies I like to do is to look at the R project page. So this is cran.r-project.org. This is really CRAN stands for Comprehensive R Archive Network. This is really the best place. I mean, you go here to download R, you go here to do all kinds of things. But a very handy thing over here is this link called Task Views. You can see I've visited it many times. So task views. So now what a task view is sort of turned around the other way. I say, you're a scientist or some other kind of person, you want to do this kind of analysis in this discipline. What are the packages that you want to do? So let's say I'm interested in analyzing spatiotemporal data, or I think I am. I can click on spatiotemporal, and I get a list of, here's the topic of representing spatiotemporal data, and each of these things sort of gives hints about packages or functions. If I'm going to do geostatistical analysis, I can find here's a whole bunch of different packages that do different kinds of geostatistical analysis, and on and on and on. So these are also good places to start if you're interested in trying to understand a particular type of analysis and you don't know exactly what packages or even which packages to begin looking at, but you can sort of find them here. Official statistics is an interesting one. So there's a bunch of packages designed to interface with US government survey data, for example, and other kinds of big public surveys. Very useful for pulling in information and working with it. All right. Now, what else can you do? If you look on the, I've already talked briefly about our cookbook site. Down at the bottom of the help page, there are a couple of options on other ports of call, as they call them. The cookbook for R-Link, that's the one I showed in an earlier video. Cheat sheets from RStudio, those are very handy, and QuickR. The other place where you can often find a lot of help is what's called the Stack Overflow site. You go to Stack Overflow. This is a site for programmers, and there was a big effort to sort of really push a lot of R help type tasks onto the Stack Overflow site. And so you'll see there's all sorts of questions about many different kinds of programming, but the ones about that have to do with R are usually tagged with an R tag. So you can click on that R tag, and it'll take you to questions about R. And what you can do is actually the best way to do this, let's see, is to search up here. Oh, here's the search box. If you go up here in this top right corner, there's a little magnifying glass. You put R in square brackets and then say, stick things together. And what will happen is I've got 5 results, and you can just sort of work your way through these. And in this case, none of them are particularly useful, it doesn't look like. So I haven't really articulated my question in a very good way. You can see good questions get lots of votes, and answers, you can also see how many people have tried to answer them. So this is a good place to look for all kinds of things. The trick is then trying to formulate your question in a way that brings up sort of good questions. Put 2 strings together. Okay. Create variables, maybe. So this actually brings up yet another library called Stringer, which deals with strings. So lots of different ways to do the same thing and lots of different ways to get help.